I'm going to walk you through an entire Nano Brows session from start to finish. So I disinfected her eyebrows and then I laid on a topical numbing ointment, and in this video I'm using TXTK. It's one of my favorites and it works really well. Then I put a plastic wrap over her brows. You can find this plastic wrap in my Amazon storefront. What it allows for is faster processing time because it's asphyxiating her skin, so it's only going to absorb the numbing cream. And what you're seeing me do here is I'm doing pigment swabs on her forehead. Now I'm going to hand her a mirror and I'm going to show her my recommended pigment. And when you saw me swab on top of the swabs, what I was using was just water, so that because when they dry they look really dark and that always intimidates the client, so I like to make sure that I'm putting some moisture on there. Then I wipe off the numbing. After the 20 minutes, my little alarm goes off and you're seeing me mapping here. I bring her up. I always bring my clients up when I'm mapping to make sure I'm getting the most symmetrical shape possible. So again, lying her down, bringing her up for this part of the mapping. And I did use stainless steel calipers when I was measuring the lines, the initial lines that I've made there. I like using stainless steel or disposable calipers. And I am using meta glasses when I'm recording this portion, so I'm sorry for the movement. Now I laid her back down, I cleaned up the shape, I traced the shape with a white gel pen, and then I drew in the strokes with a Sharpie pencil. When I showed her the map shape, she wanted me to bring in the heads of the brows a little more, and that's why it is so important that you draw in the strokes before you start tattooing, before you go over any of the strokes that you're planning on tattooing in. You want to make sure that you're showing the client exactly what they're getting. So again, we made that adjustment and then I jump right in. I am going over the strokes that I drew in with the Sharpie pencil. And again, that one's linked on my Amazon storefront too. So I tattoo over each of them, moving really slowly, holding my machine at a 90-degree angle. And I am setting my machine, I'm using the Y22 from Mast. I'm setting my machine at a 5.5 to 6.5 at most. So when I'm doing the strokes, I'm usually at a 6.5, and then when I'm shading, I'll adjust it to 5.5. So what I do is I am going over the strokes really slowly with the first pass, and then only the ones in the front, and then the rest of the eyebrow I'm adding shading. Now I don't do all of my nano brows like this. This is more of a combination, and this was specifically based off of what this client was looking for. She had microblading before and she didn't like how short of a time it lasted on her. She kept telling me that pigment just didn't take well on her skin and all the things. She has oilier skin and she has larger pores, so shading was best for her, but she did want the strokes in the front. So that is what's considered nano brows, those strokes in the front. When you're using a machine to implant hair strokes instead of using a microblade, it is called nano brows. So this is why I'm referring to this technique as nano brows. But I guess it would be considered a combination brow because I am adding shading throughout the whole body of the brow. They just look really natural healed because you will see the hair strokes in the front, and then the rest is going to look like she has a little bit of eyebrow powder on. I typically do 3 passes of shading. I do 3 passes, and then before I present the finished product, the finished brows to my client, I'm gonna hover above her, right above her face, and I'm gonna make sure no spaces need additional passes, because if they do, then that would be considered a 4th pass. But I'm just touching up any spaces that I think need a little bit more pigment. I am doing the 3-point stretch. Every time I'm touching her brows, I want to make sure that I'm stretching the skin. That is so important. And then when you saw me remove the eyebrow hairs, I'm using, I guess they're called twinkle blades. I only use that to remove eyebrow hairs throughout the session, and then I did a mask there, and I wiped off the mask. I hovered above her, and I noticed she needed a little more shading. Now, this client told me she likes wearing her eyebrows really bold. She wanted them dark. I wanted to make sure that they healed as natural looking as possible, and these are going to fade around 60%. What you're seeing on the screen right now is going to fade, but I did want to achieve a pretty bold look for her. So the fourth pass, in my opinion, was very much needed, not only because I saw some spaces that needed a little more saturation, but because of what this client shared with me before we started the session. Before I start any session with any client, I'm asking them what they hope to achieve, and that's when you can base your technique off of that and make adjustments as needed. Now we're chatting the whole time, but as you can see, it doesn't interfere with any of my machine work, anything I'm doing, because I'm stretching her skin using that 3-point stretch, holding her skin extremely taut. And here I'm going in with the, some people call this a dermaplaning blade, and other people call it the twinkle blade. Call it what you want. I love these, and I only use disposable ones. You want to use as many disposable products as possible. I use this mascara wand spoolie to brush off the little hairs because it's so much easier than wiping their skin, and you want to be cognizant of how many times you're wiping their skin because you don't want their skin to feel raw at the end. What's coming up now is when I present her the results, and she totally freaks out. She was so happy. If you want to hear the audio for this, follow me on social media, Brow Beauty by Victoria, and I'm going to put a clip somewhere of her reaction because it was so great. She was super happy. I listened to everything she wanted.